Let's talk roster rules. Is it time to release the roster rules? I think this is a great time to bring it up and let it go. Jason's already emoting it. So go on, Jay. You could start us off.
Eliminate the roster rules. We need mayhem. If you want to be good, just buy everyone. That's what I say. Just do it. Let teams spend what they want to spend. I think I always thought the designated players. Not to go against the name of the podcast, but like if teams want to go out and spend in other countries and bring in top talent and spend all the money that they have, let them do it. That's mine. That's all I'll say on this.
Kind of like the New York Mets are doing, aren't they?
Exactly.
Yes, sir. That's right. The New York Mets. The collapse this year is going to be phenomenal.
George
All the money we're
Steinbrenner like rolling over in his grave because Hal won't spend like an extra like 2 million over the luxury tax.
that was your Mets update. The Mets are elite, and our collapse is going to be great. Thank you for joining us on the Mets update. Back to conversation. Um, Connor, your thoughts? Roster rules.
I'll go for a middle ground.
Boo.
I don't know if we should just completely release it and just have complete mayhem. As much as I do like the chaos, because we do love a bit of chaos in MLS, as you could tell by those penalties that were written, just read off, especially that one in particular. Um, so I would say that I think they should definitely revamp it, and there should be more designated players and more tam gam and just more ability to spend money on better players because the quality in the league has grown exponentially, and I think there's so much potential right now to grow it even more if you just kind of like loosen the reins. But my worry with just completely like taking the leash off and just letting the finances go wild is that you're I mean, I know for a fact you would just get what you have in the Prem, where you have the top six and then you have everybody else. And it's just going to be the same teams every time finishing towards the top. It's going to be NYCFC running off Man City money to finish in the top three in the conference every single season, while San Jose is rotting in the Western Conference cellar every single season. So I think for the sake of parity in the league, I think we can up it, but I don't think we should just completely have mayhem.
So here's what I'll say. As much as I love a good bit of parity in MLS, because I do. That's one of the reasons I love this league, is you can show up and you never know what's going to happen. Over the last half decade, maybe a little bit longer, Toronto and Seattle have been like in the finals every single year of a, non-important conference, right? The Supporters Shield is a better measure of parity in the league. While it might not be the and I'll say now, especially as we add more teams and you're not playing everybody, it's value in terms of a like best team in the league is definitely less. It is a better judgment of parity because the playoffs basically everybody's getting in and you're seeing the same 5, 6 teams in the conference finals, conference semis every year, right? Outside of the one or two. So the roster rules for me don't eliminate parity, but and this is the stance that I've always taken with this is the roster rules are necessary to protect and support the soccer pyramid in America. If you go out and you are allowing teams to spend whatever they want, whenever they want, you're going to have teams like LA and NYC and Inter Miami who are going to buy the Messis, the Suarez, the Neymars, the this, that, and the other, right? They are going to go out because money is no object in America and you can buy anybody you want for whatever you have people who have way too much money here who are going to buy everybody and anybody for no matter what. Eventually, you're going to have people who are going to stop watching the bad teams, the Chicago's, the San Jose's. You let that continue for long enough, those teams fold, and you're right back to MLS 1.0, where you're salvaging teams off for nothing. So that's always my worry. Do I think we're in a better spot where we can open it up a little bit? Sure. Right. And we are, right? We're allowing people, you've got the young designated player rule, you've got increased GAM and TAM every single year. And I believe there's been talks about a fourth DP. People are frustrated, my personal opinion, people are frustrated that MLS is taking a step up, but it's not stepping up fast enough. I think that is the issue. People are getting impatient. And I'm not a business guy, I'm a scientist. But if you rush into rash decisions, is the term I'm going to use, because the majority of people who don't understand your system in general want you to, you set yourself up for failure. Don Garber probably has to deal with this every other day. Somebody coming up to him saying, release the roster, right? Because obviously everybody's going up to Don Garber on his free time and talking to him about MLS roster rules. But it's a bit of a credit to him to stand true to what he's doing. And I'm assuming that every time they do a CBA negotiation, there's a conversation of what the roster rules are going to be. Which means that I think is it a 5 or a 10 year, whatever it is, there's a conversation of where do we want to be in the next 5 years. And they put a plan together and they do. Sticking to that plan is vital for this league to continue to grow. Because the second you start losing teams is the second that we start going from this to this. And we can't have that. We're moving in the right direction. We have been for a long time. We can't go backwards. So as much as I'd love to open it up, I'm on the side of keeping them for a little bit longer, at least another 10 years. Yeah, I know. I was waiting for that.
That's so lame.
well, here's the deal, right? Everybody's thinking, everybody compares us to the England and the Premier League and this whole system. England's been around since the 1800s, the English Premier League and the English football pyramid. We're 27 years old. We are our age. You don't just turn that in overnight, especially in a country that's gotten 4 other major sports. England's fighting against cricket, rugby, and darts.
Don't disrespect darts.
Never. I say that as a serious comment because apparently darts are massive in England.
Matt, have you ever been to a darts competition? It's amazing.
I want to. It's on my bucket list now.
They have
But
them
right
in the street. We'll go.
All right, hit me up. But listen, when you're competing with those sports as a league that's been around for 200 years versus a brand new league that's competing with other leagues that have been around for 100 to 200 years that have billions of dollars invested into them, while you are a 27-year-old league with maybe a couple $100 million, you can't just go out and pretend that you're like everybody else. It doesn't work that way. You have to do it strategically. And like I said, I've heard they teach a decent business degree at SUNY Oneonta. So I trust Donnie Garber and his 5-year plan.
If you ask anyone at the business department how the business department is, they're like, "Oh, it's booming."
I love it.
But no, I see what you're saying. So if you don't mind, if we're not running too late, I would like to see what Connor's middle ground of progression would be. Like, what would you think the ideal progression would be in loosening the roster restrictions, but not going into mayhem, which would be a lot more fun. Sorry.
Okay. I think we should keep on that focus of like getting in young, talented players, building them up and selling them onto Europe right now, and just really solidify that identity. And then continue to build on that until we can get to a point where we're comfortable. The sport is big enough in the country, and we could say, okay, now we feel comfortable where we can just kind of really take the reins off and go buy your Messis, go buy your Neymars, go bring all these people to play in the US and have them get these massive sponsorship deals. So I feel like if I was to specifically go into the rules, I would want to focus on adding maybe one or two more like young designated player spots. Sink some more money or maybe create some extra like roster spots that are specific to youth guys that are coming through your system. Get more like Pepis, get more Reggie Cannons, get more Gio Reynas at NYC. That's kind of what I'm hoping for, at least at the moment. And then once we have that, once we kind of like settle in a bit more and the sport continues to grow, and I think that'll correlate a lot with if the US team is doing well, then we can like start to sink the money into it big time.
Is that satisfactory for you, Jason?
Yeah, I like it. Oh, yeah, like, add like another young DP player, and then like add like a one more for like regular, like 4 and 2. I think that's a good like experimental way to see how loosening the restrictions would be up. I think Connor's got a good 4-year plan going.
One of the things that is tough is you can't mandate teams use that, and that's the issue. You've got teams like Red Bull who use one of them a year, and you've got teams like LA that use all 4. You've got 3 DPs and the young, and that's where the issue is. You can add as many as you want. If you're not making teams use them, that's where you still have that issue. And here's the other big issue, and because Connor talked about creating that identity, right? This league is still trying to fight with Euro snubs. And we joke about it a lot on the podcast, but it's a serious topic when we talk about the growth of the league, because no matter what you do, no matter who you bring in, right? We're bringing Messi in. People are always saying you have to go buy big name players. We're bringing big name players in, and they're still talking about it. So the growth of the league, we have to find that answer too, and that's not in roster rules, by the way. Roster rules don't grow the league, because guess what? We could put pro rel in there. We could take every roster rule away. We could sign every big name player on the transfer market right now, and somebody will still have an excuse to say why this league isn't important. So the other side of it that has nothing to do with roster rules is people who just don't want to give it a chance. So it's another generation, right? We need to bring the generations up. It's on the next step, right? So
I've got a suggestion that I'm curious to know both of your takes on.
Okay.
And I know it's going to kind of contradict the point that I was saying before, because it would be a move that would kind of shift away from parity in the league, but I almost kind of like it as I want to say like a punishment to the other teams. But what do you think about having the ability to sell designated player spots? If Red Bull don't use all 3, let's say they use 2, LAFC want to use the other one, sell it to LAFC, and then they can go get another designated player. Because then I feel like it's good for the league as a whole, because then you don't have these spots where you can go bring in someone who you could develop or a big name player that could really help the league grow. And now you could use it, versus if Red Bull just hoards it and doesn't use it, then it doesn't have any benefit.
The way that, because I've thought about that too, and the way that I see this is you can't sell it to other teams. But what you can do is, if there is a price, right? If you say that the designated player slot, it counts for $600,000 against your budget, right? You can sell that to the league, and the league will give you extra gam tam to build from within, right? Red Bull, Philly, teams that will use it to bring up younger players and fit their mold, FC Dallas, whatever, right? Then if you want to buy it and you have an open slot, you can pay $600K gam and get it back to bring a DP in. That's the only way I see that working. Because if you do that and you say, oh, I'll just sell all my DP spots off, then yeah, LA, Inter Miami, they're going to buy 9 of them, bring in everybody that they want, kill everybody, and then the league goes back to where.
Well, they're not gonna be able to buy 9 of them, because teams are gonna have to use them in that case in order to compete. But like, if a San Jose is going into the season at this point and they have this extra designated player spot, they're not going to use it. If they did sell it to an LAFC, now all of a sudden all the other teams are like, well, I feel like it would put pressure on them for them to actually use their designated player spot. It's like, okay, LAFC are going to come to the table with 4 DPs. We got to make sure we use all 3 of ours if we want to be able to have a chance to compete with them.
Interesting. Jason, what are your thoughts there?
I kind of like that idea. Use it or lose it kind of thing. I like teams, with aspiring to do something with what they have and like doing everything they can to win and a title or be the best team, win a supporter shield, whatever they aspire to do. I like it. I think there would have to be some restrictions on how many you can buy. I think there would have to be restrictions on how many you could sell. I guess it's hard. I feel like, it's I hate to go off track, but like, this is something that the MLB has been dealing with for something longer than MLS has been around for, where some teams spend, other teams don't. It's really hard to control that. So I'm kind of I would be interested to see how that looks, but that's like also another thing. Like you can't just bring that in and then chaos ensues and you have all these teams just kind of like tanking while the other teams are like just spending as much as they can. So I get that there's some leeway, but I kind of like what Connor's saying right now.
I mean, we have
Yeah, go ahead.
we have like a bajillion teams joining the league. I mean, it's only a matter of time before we have like 40 teams. I almost feel, and this is kind of a harsh thing to say, but I almost feel like at some point, why do we keep rewarding a franchise like a San Jose who just sits at the bottom of the West every single season just because they're a legacy team, because they've been here in the past, when you could have a team like, let's say you can have someone like a St. Louis who comes in from scratch and is willing to spend money and make the league better, bring in more talent. But at some point we're going to have to cap the league. And then, why are we wasting a spot on a team that just doesn't want to spend, is just continuously losing games and finishing at the bottom just because they've been there before?
And I think we're tiptoeing dangerously to pro rel here, and we do not have time to go to a pro rel.
No, we can't. Yeah, we can't
Let's
do that
do
yet.
That's a. We'll bring you back for that one, Jay. Don't you worry.
That's a whole other episode. I was just talking about that over the weekend with somebody.
Yeah, it's It really comes down to the ownership, right? You and we've talked about this too. Is the fact that if you've got owners who aren't going to spend, those owners need to go or jump on board, right? With the new teams coming in, the Atlanta, the LAFC, St. Louis is doing well. It sets a precedent, a standard of we are going to join the league and we make a commitment to improve it. Where teams like Minnesota, when they came in, FC Cincinnati, when they came in, and they were like, we're just going to use our USL sides and get smacked, and then we'll improve it better later. It's a give and take. So and then you've got teams like New England who just started paying for the first time in 26 years, 2 years ago. It's all about the owners, and at the end of the day, like we said, we can't force them to do it. But that's got to be the mindset. Do I think selling designated player spots are going to help anybody? No, outside of the people who buy them. But
It helps
because
the league.
does it though? Because eventually you're just going to have a bunch of those the fans. Red Bull, for example, if Red Bull sold off, we've constantly been complaining about the lack of DPs in this team for 4 years, 5 years now, right? People have stopped following. If we just start selling DP spots and say, hey, we're never going to do that, we're just going to be a feeder system, the team folds. Fans stop showing up. The stadium gets even more empty, which I don't know if that's possible, but I bet you they try. It becomes a precursor to folding teams. That is my take on it.
Well, I mean, you guys don't use it
Okay.
anyway, and people don't show up to begin with. So is really anything changing?
Yeah, because we're going to lose even more people, and eventually Red Bull are just going to back it. They're going to say, okay, this isn't worth it. We're not getting, because what's going to happen, and I'm going to try and do this quick because we got to get our last. Maybe we don't even do the last topic. TV rights aren't that big. We'll finish here. Here's the thing, right? Now that with New York City around, and they've got their own set up academy. I believe Gotcha is a part of their system. They've got their own academy now. They're picking kids from Gotcha. They're picking kids from Long Island, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. I mean, it's not crazy to think that if we stop, and we being Red Bull, if we stop supporting the way that we want to do things, and the fans stop showing up and stop giving money to the program, that Red Bull just backs out completely, gives up on the whole thing, cuts its losses. Everybody goes to New York City's academy, and Red Bull's gone because Red Bull don't have a, Red Bull is an academy system. That is it. They buy 2 good players a year, good, quotes on good, right, from overseas. Hope they do well, sneak into the playoffs every year, bounce in the first round. Good job, guys. Success. We'll take 2 of your best young players and repeat. Fans get tired of it. And if you're going to just make it a point where you're going to say, okay, I'm just going to sell somebody a designated player spot, I'm going to give up on this idea of even trying to be competitive, those fans go. Those fans go, and they're saying, I'm going to go either stop supporting the league in general because my team sucks and I don't want to go to another team, or they're going to go to another team. And that either way, you stop getting the revenue from those teams. The Red Bulls stop getting put on national broadcast, so they lose that TV right because they don't have any players that people want to watch, right? Why is NYC constantly on national television? Because they've got players who people want to watch. Same thing with LA. Same thing with Seattle, right? That's the way it works. You lose all of that, the team is gone. And it'll be the same thing if teams like Chicago, teams like San Jose, teams like Houston approach things that way. It will not work. I don't believe it'll work.
Yeah, but why are we continuously rewarding franchises for doing the bare minimum?
How is it a reward?
Well, you get to stay in the league and keep around fans and get to continue to do the bare minimum to barely make the playoffs.
Are you suggesting pro-rel? Is that where we're going with this?
Honestly, the more you kept talking, the more I kept thinking about it as a way to as a way to properly punish the team. But like, why we can have a new team come in who's actually willing to spend, but instead we're just going to have Red Bull be a feeder team for other teams where they're just not going to spend. They're just going to have players on loan and then ship them out to the other Red Bull teams. Like, why should they get a spot in the league?
This is why I love having a third person here. Jason, did he not just talk about how the identity of the league needs to be shipping players overseas? And that has to be our entire motto to build our reputation amongst the world.
Yeah, but doing it as a loan feeder program for the Red Bull system.
So it doesn't matter. So it matters unless it's Red Bull. Then it doesn't matter because you need to be right against me.
Oh, but you gotta earn. Oh,
no, but don't know about me. Don't know about me. Don't know about me. It's either yes or no. You
have to earn money from the transfer that you can reinvest, but you don't get any money to reinvest.
Plus a 33% sell-on fee for Tyler Adams. Stop it.
But what'd you do with it?
Right back into the youth academy, baby.
Exactly. Yeah, what came out of that? Caden Clark?
John Tolkien, the future left back of the U.S. men's national team. Haven't we been through this?
I think you eventually have to put a minimum of what slots you use. Like, you have to use your slots. You either lose it or I don't know what they have to do. I know other leagues in the U.S. have some sort of like salary cap floors. NBA has it. I think NHL has it, where if you don't spend, you have to use some sort of salary cap. Like, you can't just tank and spend $40 million or whatever salary cap it is. But I think that's something that the MLS should think of, because I think it's kind of ridiculous that the Red Bulls or the Earthquakes just don't use slots. Like, make your team as competitive as it can be.
See, that I didn't realize there were floors that were a thing. I didn't realize that was even a thing, but that is how you get old owners who don't want to spend money either to jump on board or get out, saying this is the new way we're going to do it. You're either going to give up and you're going to let somebody else do it who wants to do it, or you're going to jump on board and you're going to start making this team competitive. I love that.
And that's why I think the MLB has not tempted that fate, because all of a sudden the Pirates, the A's, the Rays are out, and I think it would probably go better in MLS because maybe teams can get away with spending on a cheap designated player just to fill the slot, but it would at least get them to go out and get some sort of talent. But
Yeah.
Well, I guess just to jump in and I know I brought out the San Jose scarf and I keep using them as my example to kind of dog on here, but it's the team that jumps out to me that's been consistently poor every season. I guess who's to say that if they do have a floor, like let's say they have to use like 2 designated player spots or something, and let's say San Jose has 1 and it's getting close to the season, who's to say that they don't just say like, hey, Jackson Ewell, we're going to bump up your contract and now you're just going to be a designated player so that we can hit our requirement?
Sure, but that also frees up a spot then. If you bump him into that spot, that frees up a spot for you to open up for a TAM player, a GAM player, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't mean they're going to spend on somebody like they should be. Like the whole point of the designated player spot is to have the ability to spend on that
Right.
high quality player to bring in.
But
Which
if
San
that's
Jose
what
is
we're
still not doing in that case with the floor. Doesn't really
but now
change
here's
anything for them.
sorry, but now here's the thing, right? That now means that people are getting paid, which means the
Which is
value
great.
of that spot goes up. Yeah, which is great. It's great for the league. It means the value of that spot goes up. It means more people want to try and get into academies at a younger age. They see it as a reliable option, right? Why are people jumping into academies and putting money in so readily at the youth level? Because there's an opportunity here. Soccer is growing, right? I use lacrosse, right? Lacrosse is fun, but it's not as and maybe I don't know this because I wasn't a lacrosse player, but I don't think it's like you've got club teams that are traveling every weekend playing in 9 different leagues to try and get you seen by college coaches and things like that, unless you're a top 5%. I might be wrong. If you make it, and again, it's a long-term play. There's no tomorrow solution, right? I think we agree on that. This isn't happening tomorrow. But the long-term play would be to set something up that is sustainable for the next 5 years, the next 10 years. That means that the people who are 12, 13 years old right now, and in 5 years when they're 17, 18, can get signed to a homegrown player contract, that homegrown player contract is worth something. And it makes people want to actually think they can do it. Then you invest in your youth academy and you build it up that way. And then you get those players that go overseas, right? That you're just talking about. Mixed with the fact that we probably do need to open that or raise that floor a little bit and that ceiling, slide it up just a touch. But we have to find some way to encourage people to be a part.
I feel like just kind of the summary of the way I just kind of feel about the whole thing right now. It's just like I see like an LAFC team who's like super excited and wants to spend money and bring in all these talented players. And I feel like the league has to go to them and be like, no, sorry, you can't do that because teams like San Jose and Houston and Red Bull don't want to spend money. So therefore, we can't let you spend the money that you want to spend and bring in the players that you want to bring in because these other teams don't want to. And because that would create too much, it would lose too much parity in the league.
Jason, I'll let you answer that. How do you feel about that?
I agree. I mean, I don't. That's why I'm kind of like at the beginning. I was jokingly like bringing the chaos. Like, who cares about what the other small teams want to do? Let the big teams, let the teams who want to spend and want to be exciting, so you can attract more fans for the league. I mean, I think if that's the case, is that's why they're not expanding because other teams don't want to spend and they're worried about losing those fans, then so be it. Or make restrictions where they can't be the bottom feeders that they are. Make them spend. I don't know.
Let me ask you something. Does
Yeah.
spending a lot of money mean that you're automatically going to be good?
No, but it makes you more exciting. It brings in more talent at least. Like, I mean, I wasn't into MLS and all of a sudden LA Galaxy bring in Zlatan. I'm like, everyone knew Zlatan was on LA Galaxy. You didn't have to be a fan of soccer. Everyone was like, Zlatan's in. Did LA Galaxy all of a sudden become the best team in MLS? No. But was everyone watching LA Galaxy team games? 100%. So I think
that's a oh, sorry, go ahead, finish.
It's not like I'm not saying that every team needs to go out and buy like the most on-brand player that's going to attract fans, but you also need to motivate teams to want to bring in more fans, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's the flip side of the designated player rule is you want to bring somebody in who's going to help your team, but half of the teams use it to sell jerseys. Yeah, I mean, look at NYC's first three. Two of them played bang average. One of them didn't move half the time, but they sold a ton of money, and Man City made money. Right? You look at oh man, wasn't Philadelphia Union's Kleberson? Wasn't he like a big name at that point? And they were terrible in 2013. I'm just going through a list here of players that I've seen, right? Sam Johnson, Real Salt Lake's a perfect example. Designated player money. Do play like 12 games, right? San Jose loves to pick at the the Mexico market, bringing in Chofis Lopez, who was good but didn't help him win, but probably got the more Mexican fans, right? So it's a give and take for sure. I've been looking a lot here at this page here, and a lot of teams are open spot right now because of some movement that happened over the last couple of days and weeks. But a lot of the teams that are you've got teams that are, it doesn't directly 3 DPs doesn't directly translate to success, right? So Columbus Crew, 3 DPs, Nagby, Zelleran, Gucho Hernandez. Missed the playoffs, right? Pretty sure they missed the playoffs this year. FC Dallas had 3 DPs for a long time. Couldn't get in the playoffs. DC United had 3 DPs. No playoffs. Worst team in the league. Houston Dynamo, 3 DPs. Second worst team in the league. Right? So, yeah, it'd be nice to open it up and have lots of players come in. But I think we need to be smarter with the way that we spend. And that's why the Young DP initiative was great. Because it makes you think about how am I going to turn this player both into money on the field and money in a transfer. And that is the way we need to go about it. We don't need to just open it up and say, let's go spend. Let's go buy anybody we want. Right? Because that's not always the answer. But that's just Inter Miami. Inter Miami, great example.
3 DPs definitely doesn't guarantee you a playoff spot, but it gives you a much better shot at doing something with the team. Because I'm looking at the list right now of past MLS Cup winners: LAFC, NYCFC, Columbus Crew, Seattle Sounders, Atlanta, Toronto. That's just since 2017. I'm pretty sure every single one of those teams had 3 DPs.
They have the 3 right DPs. Also, we agreed a long time ago never to bring up that 2020 Cup. Ever. Never once.
I'm just going down the list.
Which means you're off the pod. Jason, congratulations, co-host. Well done. Welcome.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. Yes, it has to be the right ones, but you don't see a team in here that has the right 2 or 1 DP because they don't win MLS Cup. All these teams have 3.
But my point is opening up to 4 or 5 or unlimited puts us in a position of uncertainty for the future. Because if you're going to go sink your money into 100 South American Player of the Year's Pity Martinez's who are just going to flop on you after year 1, well, that's money you're not getting back unless somebody wants to buy him for $20 million, because apparently that's how things work. But my point is, you're not going to get that return all the time if the performance isn't there, especially if we want this league to be considered top of the top. You need the players you bring in to perform so that they can go overseas. I think South American Player of the Year, Pity Martinez, was an exception to that because he came in, did poorly, and still went for a profit. or at least break even. But that's the exception to the rule. If you don't perform here, you're not getting that move, or you're going back to Argentina. Which one of the Atlanta players went back?
Barco.
Yeah, right. He's going straight back. It's a, you're never going to hit on everybody. I get it. But again, to me, it's long term, right? We can't just go and say, okay, we're going to open it up, and that's going to mean more good players, and these good players are going to come in and instantly raise the level of our league. I mean, hell, I can go through every Red Bull flop of a designated player right now, right? My favorite, right? Josh Sims on loan. Drew Yearwood, right? Drew Yearwood was a DP for 2 years. He's most known for kicking a ball at somebody. Haku, also best known for kicking a ball at somebody. Omer Damari, on loan from Leipzig for half a year, played 3 games. Gonzalo Verón, mucho trabajo, Gonzalo Verón, couldn't get off of Jesse's bench. Frank Rost was basically the Rais Simboli signing for Red Bull. That was back in 2011. He who shall never be named, but the center back from Mexico and Barcelona. Self-explanatory. So that is right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, how could I forget my good friend Patrick Klamala, who scores 1 goal in the entire season, and it's from penalty kick. 0 open play goals since April. 9 of 13 swings and misses. You can give Red Bull 9 of them. Give them every DP slot in the entire league. They will swing and miss. But we make a dang good teenage right back. I will tell you what. So
I mean, you have the slot. You might as well at least step up to the plate and try to swing. Yeah, you might strike out 10 to 13 times, but you get the Sasha Kleshtin, the Thierry Henry every once in a while, the BWP.
But we don't. That's the thing. We don't get those players anymore. We used to, and then our entire mindset shift. And
yeah, but what's the point? Not trying.
But here's my point.
If you don't even try, then you don't get them either.
But here's my point. Opening it up and saying, okay, we're going to give you more is not going to say, oh, now I'm going to go spend on it. It's not an incentive like, oh, I'm not buying it because I don't have the spots. It's the way that they want to run their club. Red Bull need to go if you want to see those spots used. I promise you.
Yeah, well, if Red Bull doesn't want to use them, then give it to someone else that will. That will step up to the plate. Why should Red Bull just get to hold it and not use it?
Give it back to the league then. You're not giving it to other players. Give it back to the league, get paid $600K for it. And then you put that into, I don't know, some dude from Red Bull Bragato, and he'll play 4 games, get hurt, and never see him again. Go ahead.
I'm going back and being unlike in Connor's idea of selling, the slots. You find teams for not using their slots. I'm done. No, you don't reward teams for not. I'm done. You're poorly managed. You don't want to spend on DPs because you can't get the good DPs. Losers get fined. That's what I'm saying.
So here's the thing. My favorite part about this entire episode is Jason's watched about 4 games of MLS in like the last 4 years, and he said 2 of the best ideas since we sat down. That's
why we pay him the big bucks.
Put a floor on there and fine their ass if they don't use anything. I love it. But he's right? If you're gonna say you need to use it, and again, that might go back to Connor and say, okay, well now Jackson Ewell is going to be a designated player. Great, but at least they're not getting fined, right? So you're opening up other spots, and maybe that's the right thing, because if the floor is raised, then you're going to go and use that money to buy somebody to fill that spot. Mm-hmm. And if you have a floor and you're going to say, okay, well, I need to spend 50,000, 100, 200, I don't know, whatever number you want to say, I'm going to use that to get the best player in that spot that I can. The issue with, now that I think about it, the issue with putting the floor in there is the way that a designated player hits your salary. Your designated player only takes up $650K of your 2.7, 3.1, whatever the salary is. So if your floor is going to be, if you have 3 designated players, right, your floor has to be $2 million. You need to be between $2 and $3 million, which You can do that with one designated player in your entire team. So I think the floor is a good idea, but the ceiling needs to be raised also.
I agree.
Yeah. Jason, the only thing I'm upset with you about is you didn't get into yelling at Connor. There were plenty of opportunities to yell at him, which is a need for this episode.
I think we were pretty civil about the Geo thing. I think yesterday, I also was reading some misinformation, so I was kind of getting a little angry at Connor when he said that Greg did nothing wrong. When you said Greg did nothing wrong, I was livid in like the gym parking lot.
Yeah, I ended up changing my mind on that anyway, honestly, once I read into it a little bit more.
Jason's on pre-workout screaming at people walking by.
I'm in like a random Planet Fitness in Poughkeepsie, like just yelling at people.
Uncle Arm's screaming. He's getting dragged out with his legs kicking. Greg has ruined my day.
I didn't bring the screaming, but I thought that was a very good conversation. So I apprate you guys having me.
Yes, we very much appreciate you having stepping on and being here with us. As I said, I think if we brought our fourth on, it would have been a lot more toxic, but it also would have gone 4 hours. So
yeah, I can't do that. I have to be at work at 8 a.m.
tomorrow. So thank you again, Jason, for joining us on episode 132 of the Designated Players Podcast. We hope everybody else enjoyed. Make sure you go follow us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, so you can see when we post our clips. Make sure you're following us wherever you get your podcasts. When our episodes go live. Give us likes, ratings, subscribes, all of those good things. Jason, we always give our guests a way to plug themselves, whether it be social media or something you're doing. So go right ahead. You could take this time.
Thank you. You can follow me at Real Jason, newly Dr. Jason.
Way.
Yeah, shout out to me. No, I'm just kidding. But
I love it.
All I have to say is, come on, you mighty Potters. English League Championship, let's get it.
Jason, so you joined us. You heard a lot about what we were thinking. Are you going back to FCC this year? Who is your MLS team? You gotta pick one. No pressure. No pressure.
Is there any new teams coming in this year that I haven't? Oh wait, you guys had an expansion draft, right?
St. Louis, yeah.
St. Louis.
I'll give it a shout, possibly.
Well, all right.
I had a lot of fun watching the MLS Cup this year, and previous years, like I think the first MLS Cup I watched was like 0-0. One team had like 3 shots on goal. They had no shots on goal, 3 goals, and they had a chance in PK. So I was just pissed off.
Yeah, I remember that. Like I said, you've jumped around a little bit. You were Orlando, and then you were FCC, and now we might try St. Louis. Maybe this one will stick. Third time's a charm.
I think if anything, I would go back to FCC. It was just really frustrating at first because they spent $500 million to get into the league, and then they were like, okay, we can't improve our roster now.
they won 9 games in 3 years. Yeah, we know. Been there.